The shir is going to be on the Sicha of Parshas Acharei in the Sichas Chelek Beis. We're not going to be learning the Sicha inside, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to say over in the Pratim of the Sicha by heart, including many of the Ha'aros. In other words, this is supposed to be a shir li'iyun, but what it's going to be, here I'm going to repeat the Sicha b'chlolos, my own words, and insert the ha'aros which are negeya, because there are sometimes sichas that a lot of ha'aros, but the ha'aros are zaitik side things, which means the Rebbe, when he mentions something, so by the way, he's medayik certain diyukim in the opinion, which is not negeya to the whole hemshech of the sicha. In this sicha, it's a little bit different. A lot of the ha'aros are negeya poshet to the hemshech of the sicha, to the way the sicha goes, and to in certain kashas to explain why that's a kasha, things like that. So I'm going to do that. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention some of the hagoas that the Rebbe made when he was Magiya the Sicha. This was when the Rebbe was Magiya Tovshin Lamed Daled. Rebbe was Magiya the Sicha for the Likud of that week. And later went into the Sichas Chelek Beis. So I'm going to mention some of the hagoas that the Rebbe made there. Now this is a Rasha Sicha in Parshas Acharei, and the psukim where it says, Daber Bnei Yisrael v'marta aleim ani Hashem Elokeichem. Hashem spoke to Moshe, said to him, speak to the Eden and tell him that I am Hashem your God. And then the pasuk continues, that like the actions of the Mitzrayim, and this is concerning Arayas, forbidden relations, don't do. So Rashi quotes the words from the pasuk, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and he writes like this, Ani hu shamarti b'sinai yoneich Hashem Elokeichem, v'kibartem aleichem al chusi, me'atem kablu gzereisai. That I am the Eibishter, that by Sinai, I said basically the same thing. I said, and what happened then? You were makabel my malchus. So now, he's saying the same type of words, so you should be makabel my gzeres, my decrees. And Rebbe says that the reason Hashem did that, because Golav Yedua Lefonov, it was known to Hashem then, that the end would be that they would get completely strongly involved in forbidden relations in the time of Ezra, which is many, many years later. So therefore, now already he came onto them with the gzeira, with a decree, saying, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, meaning, Du'u mi gezer aleichem. You should know who's decreeing it. It's Ani Hashem Elokeichem, which means dying liyapora. He's a judge to punish, and he's neman l'shalom schar. He's trustworthy that he's going to pay schar. Now here, one of the orders that the Rebbe says here is, why does Rasha say, Golav Yedua Lefonov? Why does it say it was known to the Eibishter? Why doesn't it say, Golav Yedua, it was known that this is going to happen? So the Rebbe says in the order, because it has to be Lefonov, because if it would be known to the Eden also, it would take away Pchira. If Eden would know that the Eibishter now is telling them that he's going to punish them and upset what's going to be later, and they know about it, then they don't have the choice later. It takes away the Pchira. And therefore, Rasha says it is only Golav Yedua Lefonov, only for the Eibishter, but the Eden didn't know it. And the fact that the Eibishter knows is no contradiction to Pchira. Anyway, this is a side thing, but it's a diik in the word of Rasha. What's the simple pshat in Rasha? Basically what it means is, what is Rasha trying to tell us? So the Rebbe explains that Rasha is wondering, what is the pasuk saying when it says, Hashem spoke to Moshe, tell the Eden, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am Hashem your God. Well, they didn't know that the Eibishter is their God. Took them out of Mitzrayim, gave them the Torah, they didn't know. So therefore, Rasha says, it wasn't just a statement telling him, I am your God, as if they didn't know it. It's an introduction to what he says further. I am your God, and therefore you be makabel upon yourself to do the gzeiros. Or the second pshat, that I am your God, he said it because he knew what's going to happen later, so he came saying such words, which means, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, that I'm going to punish for not keeping it, and I'm going to give reward if you do keep it. But then the Rebbe has a few shilas here, many shilas basically. First he asks, Rashi already said in Parshas, beginning of Parshas Va'era, when it says, like Daber L'kim Moshe V'yemer Elov Ani Hashem, so there also you could ask a shilah. In Parshas Va'era, he says, Ani Hashem tells Moshe, tell the Eden I'm the Eibishter, as if they didn't know it from before. So Rashi says, what he meant to say is, I am Hashem, I am going to pay the reward for those that keep it, and I'm going to punish those that don't. And Rashi even adds, and we see the same lashon is darshan. Whenever it says the same lashon, it's darshan in many places. Darshan that Ani Hashem nemodi pora, nemodi mischar. I am Hashem, meaning that I am trustworthy that I will punish, and trustworthy that I will give schar. So we see from there that Rashi already explained what it means when it says Ani Hashem or Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So why does Rashi here have a problem with it? Why the Chatchil is there a kasha on the pasuk? We already know Rashi over there said it in many places where it says Ani Hashem Elokeichem. It means you should know that I am going to punish and I am going to give reward. So why does Rashi here have a problem? And not only that, not only Rashi has a problem, when Rashi answers the problem, explains the pasuk, he explains the pasuk not the way it says there. First of all, the first shot is certainly not the way Rashi says in Vayera. The first shot here is that the Eibishter is telling him now is the time for you to accept my Xeris, which is not like Rashi says over there that he's telling him I will punish you and I'll give reward. And even the second shot is also not like it says there. See, in Parshas Vayera, Rashi is telling us the reason that the Eibishter is saying these words is because he wants to tell us that you should know I will punish you if you don't do it, and I will give you a reward if you do it. Here Rashi doesn't say that. Here Rashi says the reason the Eibishter said it is because of what's going to happen later in Yemei Ezra. That Rabbi, he said, what is the taich of the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem? I'm going to punish and I'm going to give a reward. But that's not the reason he says it. So l'chura here, according to both shotim, Rashi is not teaching the way he teached in Va'era, and in Va'era he said simply that's the pshat in many cases. Another shaila is, what does it mean that Rashi says that the Eibishter is saying you accepted my malchus, now is the time for you to accept my gzeiris? Which simply pshat means now is the time for you to accept my mitzvahs. What is the end of Kabbalah's malchus other than Kabbalah's mitzvahs? In derech pshat, you see in Chassidus or in Drush and other svarim, we find there are two inyanim. There's the end of Kabbalah's malchus shemayim and there's Kabbalah's mitzvahs. But in derech pshat, what does it mean Kabbalah's malchus? What should you accept Hashem as king? That you will do what he tells you to do. So what's the pshat Kabbalah's malchus? And now you have Kabbalah of the mitzvahs. They're all the same. Actually, by Matan Torah, it says in Eich Hashem Lekecha, which is Kabbalah's malchus, Rashi says that this is shtei mishubodim. This is in order for you to be mishubot to me. So we see the union of shibud, which is doing what he's supposed to do. That's the union of Kabbalah's malchus, union of shibud. Even though in the other, the Rebbe says that sometimes the word shibud has another meaning. Shibud when you're under somebody else's jurisdiction, but it doesn't mean I will do, like we have a lotion, shibud nechosim, or we have a shibud kakoy, shibud derebnosim. That doesn't mean working for somebody. But it doesn't, but in some places it does mean. Sometimes it means like this, sometimes it means like that, but over there it means to work. So to do the mitzvahs. So what's the two inyonim of malchus and mitzvahs? Then there's another shaila. Why does, if it means, and if there is two inyonim here, so why didn't the Eibishter ask him to kabul the oil of the mitzvahs at the same time when he said Kabbalah's malchus? So the first shaila is they're the same thing. But if they are two, why then he said to them Kabbalah's malchus, and now all of a sudden he said to them Kabbalah's mitzvahs? Why didn't he do it then? Another shaila, why does it say the lashon gzeiros, not mitzvahs? The regular lashon is the lashon of mitzvahs. And then another shaila is that he said, the Rebbe said he spoke many times that when Rashi brings two pirushim, it's because each one has a fault, something not 100% understood, that you need the other one. And the other one is not 100% so you need the first. So what's here the reason that we need two pirushim? I just want to mention that Achagav, that this shaila, the way it was written before when the Sikha was given into the Rebbe, was the second question. After the first question came this question. And the Rebbe made a whole circle with a whole words and everything and made it that this is supposed to be shaila hey, not the way it was there, which we see how the Rebbe was in Daik even the Seder HaInyonim. Then another shaila is, why does Rashi mention the name of who said it, that the Rebbe said it? And Klal Seder is that Rashi doesn't always quote the name, and if Rashi does quote the name, some it's negated to the Pshuta Shel Mikra. Then, and the second pshat, that Rashi says that why did Eibush Ani Hashem Elokeichem? Because he knew that Kol Vidu Alofonav, that later on B'mei Ezra the Yidden are going to be Menatik Barayas. This is taken from the Teiras Kehanim. In Teiras Kehanim it says another thing also. In Teiras Kehanim it says later on in Chumash that that the Yidden were Veichen Mishpachesayim, they were crying to their Mishpachas. So Teiras Kehanim says what it means is that when they were told about certain relations, certain marriages is forbidden, they were crying about it. So if they were crying about it, Eibush was upset. It says Vayicharaf Hashem, Eibush was upset. So maybe that, so the Teiras Kehanim says that's what Hashem, that's why Hashem said Ani Hashem Elokeichem, because he knew they're going to cry about the Arayas, and now he's going to tell them about the Arayas. So Yilchatchila said to them that you should know, I Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I'm going to punish you, and I'm going to give you a reward if you keep it. The Teiras Kehanim also brings the story with Ezra. But the shaila is, if the Teiras Kehanim brings it, why doesn't Rashi bring it? And actually, Rasha and that posik, he saw them Beichel Mishpacheisa. Pasha says that that's not what it means. That they were crying on Mishpachas like the Torah scanning. So then why would Rasha pick a story of Ezra that happened 1,000 years later when he could have picked the David was upset at what they're going to do in the closer future, which is in the same door of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, you could say that this pshat, that Beichel Mishpachesov means that they were crying about the Arayas, is a second pshat in Rasha. So it's not the real pshat. So the Rebbe said it's not true. As long as Rasha brings us as a one pshat, that means that this is traditional mikra. So therefore the question is, why doesn't Rasha bring it here? Now you could say another thing. The reason Rasha doesn't bring it because they didn't do any Aveira in Arayas there. See, in time of Ezra, they didn't Aveira in Arayas. They married Goyas. But in the time of Beichel and Shpechesav there, it wasn't that they did any Aveira. That's why maybe Rasha feels that this is not something to bring as a reason why Hashem said to them, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. But the Rebbe says in the Ha'orah, we see from there that this, even though they didn't do the Aveira, this itself is very terrible. Because behemshech to this that they did, the Pasuk says, Vayicharaf Hashem ma'od. Hashem was very angry. Va'eina meishara. And Moshe felt very bad about it. Now, if it's not so gefährlich, why would David be so angry? Asima that even that is terrible. Now, if that is so terrible, then why doesn't Rasha bring it here? So the Rebbe explains like this. It's true that when it says Ani Hashem, like Rasha says in Parashat Ve'era, means that I'm going to punish those that go against it, and I'm going to pay reward for those that do it. And Rasha says this could be the pshat all over. But this is only a good pshat if it's said at the end, after it tells you a din. At the end, after he tells you the din, he tells you, remember, you better keep it. Ani Hashem Elokeichem, because I'm going to punish, and if you keep it, I'll give you a reward. And the Rebbe quotes how in the different sukkim that Rasha brings this, there it is like that. It's all at the end of a parsha, at the end of something. For instance, in Parshas Va'era itself, the Eibusher starts off by saying, and speak to the Ani Hashem, because that's also an end. Rasha says that posik goes behemshech to the end of Parshas Shmos, where Moshe Rabbeinu said something, David got upset with him, and now David continued and finished off Ani Hashem. Makes sense. And same thing with other places, it's all at the end. But when it's written as a beginning, before the Eibusher tells you the mitzvahs, there the shaila is, why would the Eibusher say this? So we know that pshat could be Ani Hashem Elokeichem, means that I'm going to punish you and reward you. But that doesn't make sense here, because it's only written after something is written already. So therefore, we have to say, the Rebbe says pshat in Rasha, the Rasha says we have to say that here it's a different thing. It's a beginning. In other words, this is not a hakdama to what is to the pratim is going to say later. This is an inyan in itself. Hashem spoke to Moshe, say to the Eden, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am your God. Which is similar to what happened by Matan Torah. By Matan Torah, David said, Anochi Hashem Elokeichem, which means I am your God, which means be mekabel mi as a melech. It's not hakdama to later. This is like a Kabbalah's Malchus itself. Now that the Torah says again here the same thing, Hashem said, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, so you would think maybe he's telling you again the same thing, be mekabel my malchus. But that can't be. Because if he already said to be mekabel the malchus, why would he say again to be mekabel the malchus? So therefore, it must be that and Kabbalah's malchus, as we said before, is Kabbalah's mitzvahs according to Rashi, according to Pshat. So what it must be here is that he's telling him to be mekabel upon themselves the Kabbalah of malchus, which means to keep the mitzvahs, of such mitzvahs which were not included in the original Kabbalah's Malchus by Matan Torah. And those mitzvahs are called gzeiros. As the Rebbe will explain why. There are certain mitzvahs which are called gzeiros. Amongst the mitzvahs which are called gzeiros is the mitzvah of arayas. Arayas, the forbidden relations, are called gzeiros. Not all the forbidden arayas are called gzeiros. They are called gzeiros, but there is something very special here in this according to the first shot, that the arayas has a special gather of gzeiros. Actually, if you look into it, it's not like I said before, not all arayas. All arayas are actually a gather of gzeiros. And that's what that posting says here. You accepted the Panya Sol by Matan Torah, and you expected the Malchus, which means you accepted me as king and you accepted me to do the mitzvahs. But you could tie that there are certain category of mitzvahs which are called gzeiros that you never accept. Now, what mitzvahs are called gzeiros? So the Rebbe says like this. When you accept to do the mitzvahs of Hashem, obviously you accept to do it, whether you understand it or you don't understand it, you're going to do what the Eibusher wants. But what about those mitzvahs, not only you don't understand, they make no sense. Mitzvahs which are against seichel. So there a person could tie that I never accepted. And I just want to mention that Chagav, that when these words were written, so the question of the Rebbe was asked, can we compare this to Pasha the Gashmasdike king? That a person could taina that by a Gashmasdike king, when you accept his malchus and you accept to do what he wants, you know that not everything you'll understand. But you could taina, you never meant to accept things that the king says that makes no sense. And that taki never is. So the same thing a person can do here. So we asked the Rebbe if this is also a good mashal, and the Rebbe crossed it out. Obviously, he didn't like this as a mashal. Now everyone could think why he didn't want this as a mashal, but the Rebbe did not accept this as a mashal. He just said the Eibishter that a person can tell you that mitzvahs that don't make sense are something they didn't accept. So that's why the Eibishter said here, now that he's starting to give him mitzvahs that don't make sense, that are against Seichel, there's a new Kabbalah needed. And therefore, he said, Ani Hashem Elokecha, Rasha says, which means that just like I'm makabel my malchus, which means makabel my mitzvahs, but now I'm telling you, I'm starting a new category of mitzvahs. Mitzvahs which are called gzeiras. That's what Rasha calls the word gzeiras. Gzeiras means decree. And that's what the Eibishter said, I want you to makabel to do the gzeiras. Now, why are arayas called gzeira? So the Rebbe explained that it's a very poshut azach, that when it comes to marriage, the yichus counts very much. Sometimes the yichus. Now we find that in the Torah 2 places where the Torah stresses the yichus. We stress by Nachshon ben Aminodov that the Torah says he married. Aaron married Elisheva, Bas Aminodov, Aches Nachshon, to tell you the yichus. Even the Rashi says that from here we see you have to look at the brothers. Shows the yichus. When Avraham sent Eliezer to take a wife for Yitzchak, he sent him to go to my family because they're miyuchas, they're like me. So it makes sense. So the svara would be that this is the best type of shidduch. The whole union of a shidduch is v'hoya l'bosar echad, to have the children, and if both parents are special miyuchosim, it probably the children will be the best. Nevertheless, here the Eibishter made a din. The whole union of arayas is ish al kol she'er psora le'sikr. But the nekuda is to your relative, you shouldn't get close. So this is something that people can time. This is exeira. Another reason it's exeira. It's interesting the way the Eibishter created the world. The only way it could exist is if they would marry sisters. Adam Rishon's children had to marry their own sisters. Yankov married 2 sisters, which were later on Arayas. And look what came out, the Shvatim. Moshe Rabbeinu was born from one of the Arayas. His father married his aunt, which is one of the Arayas, because that's the normal thing. And that we see from the Torah. From the Torah feels a normal thing. And here the Torah is telling you the opposite, which seems like the union of the Akedah, what Avraham in the time of the Eibishter, when he gave the Akedah. First you told me, Yitzchak lekarel chazara. Then you told me, Kachnas bincha. Now you tell me, Al tishal yot chanar. You change it back and forth. That makes no sense. Here also, you tell me that we see from the Torah that the yichus is very good and you should marry the ones that are close to you. And here all of a sudden the Torah says, it's not. The Melas, that's something that you were tiny that you were not makabel. So the Torah, so David is saying here, before he was giving the Arayas, which is the Gzeiras, he says, now I want you to makabel again. So Kabbalas Malchus is one, same as mitzvahs, but before Matan Torah was Kabbalas Malchus of Tam mitzvahs, even mitzvahs that we don't understand. And now he said, I'm going to give you some Gzeiras, and I want you to makabel the Malchus for that too, to keep that too. But that shot has a certain shverikite, because why Taka didn't the Eibishter, when he gave him the Kabbalas Malchus in the beginning, include then, at the same time, the Gzeiras? Why didn't he at one time say, accept upon yourself to keep my mitzvahs, and even my Gzeiras? Why did he have to wait for now? That's one thing. Another thing, before Matan Torah, there were also certain arayas which are also for Bnei Noach. So you can't say that now it started. Therefore, Rashi has another pshat. And the pshat is that the emes, the taich of Ani Hashem Elokeichem, is like it's always. Like the taich means I'm going to punish him, I'm going to give reward. But then the kasha is, that's only a good pshat if it's at the end of a inyan. And here it's in the beginning, before he tells them the mitzvahs. So that's what Rashi says, that the reason why he says this is because to stress how important it is, because he knew what's going to happen, that he have to stress it very much. That's why he came on them. In other words, sometimes you want to stress something very much. It's not enough to tell him what to do and then tell him at the end, you better listen. You tell him before you start. You should know this is not so poshut. This is what I'm going to tell you now is very, very important. Now, why would he do it here? Because he saw what's going to happen later by Ezra. So that's why it says, he came and said to them. Now, what he said was, Ani Hashem Elokeichem means I'll punish and I'll reward. But why did he say it here in the beginning? To show how important it is. And the way the Rebbe adds in the Ha'oreh, that's why Rashi was a Loshen, that Bo Aleim B'Gzeir. When the Bo Aleim, he came on them with the Gzeir, he came, it's not a Loshen, it's a Model Loshen. It should have said that Gozer Aleim Gzeir. Why? It was Bo Aleim B'Gzeir. Because Bo Aleim means he wants to show that L'chatchila he started off so strong, he wants to show the Chaymer Ha'inyan. And also the Loshen Bo Aleim coming on them shows like a Loshen that you scare somebody. So the truth is he wanted to scare him. Why did he want to scare him? Because amongst the arayas that he was going to tell him, there's one that is very terrible. And for that, you have to be very scared. And Abish wanted to scare him. And that's why Rashi used the Loshen Lenatek. What's this? A strange Loshen, Lenatek. Lenatek means to pull away. There is one Aveira amongst the arayas which tears you completely away from the Abish. And even though that one is not written in this parsha, it's written later. But nevertheless, this is one of the arayas. And since he started talking about arayas, which later on will include this erva, this isur, he already gave him chidul. He said, I know that's going to happen. And what is that? That's marrying a goya. As we see from the Rambam, but it's understood of Yiseichel, that there is something in marrying a goya that we don't have in any other of the arayas. By any of the arayas, as bad as it is, there's a terrible avera. But there's nothing there that you pull away a yid from Davish. They're making a yid, so to speak, into a goy. The only one that Rambam says in the way that Acharei explains what it means is by marrying a goy. If you're marrying a goy, the child is a goy. A child that should have been born a yid turns into a goy. It's the only thing you could do that he turns into a goy. That's the word. That's lunatic. That's why Rashi uses the word lunatic barayas. And that's why the Eibishter saw that this is going to happen in the future. The Eibishter started off l'chatchila with a gzeira, a terrible gzeira on the Yidden, on the Hashem Elokecha, warned them before. Now, the truth is, if it would be just because the Eibishter wants, besides the fact we said that if the Eibishter would just want to tell you that I'm going to punish, and I'm going to reward, like always, the kasha was, why did he say in the beginning? Besides that, if it's just for that, at the end of the psukim, he says it again. So obviously it's not for that. So obviously, according to this pshat, what Rashi says is the Eibishter is saying, I know that you'll be nothing but arayas, and that's why he's telling you this. And that's why he started with this. Now, this pshat itself is also not such a good pshat, because it comes out that what's happening here is that the Torah is writing something, Eibishter said to them, and the Torah is writing something that's going to happen many years later. Now, to say it's a terrible kasha that the male you couldn't say such a pshat, you can't say. Why? Because from the fact that we see that later on was a natik, that they did that terribly, shows how great taiva yetzahara there is there. But mele, would be possible it should happen earlier. So the reason the Torah is saying it now, the reason is because we see it happened later. But he's saying it now, not only because it happened later. He's saying it now because since it happened later, we have to avoid now that it shouldn't happen, because we see how shaykhis it is for this to happen. So that's why it's not such a kasha. But still, it's not so poshet that the Eibishter should say something now for what later. Now, we do find in a different place where the Eibishter says something, and we touch it for later, the Moshe Pasha B'Shalach. So it says that the Eibishter told, when he gave the mun, to put away a bottle of mun. And it says there, put it away for later. So Rashi says, because there will be a time of Yirmiyah, that Eden are going to claim we can't learn Torah because we're busy making a living. So he'll take out the mon and say, well, you see in the midbar, the Eibishter gave them the food, so now you can give you the food too. So we see over there also that the Eibishter was saying something for the future. So the Rebbe says in the Ha'oreh that there it's no raya, because there the Torah says clearly that this is Meidle Deirei Seichem. Oh, so the Torah says clearly Meidle Deirei Seichem. So we made over there, we could touch it like that. So there's the question that was asked the Rebbe, can we say that the pshat is like this? That L'Deirei Seichem must mean this, because if it's going to mean just to put it away forever, it says already, doesn't posik, it should be the mishmeres, should be put away. So why does he add L'Deirei Seichem? L'Deirei Seichem must be to tell you that this is because of something that's going to happen later. Otherwise, you could say, oh, he said, put it away for all generations. Why do we have to say that it means that you should put it away that because of something that will happen later? So we could say, because to put it away, b'chlal, the mishmeres, he said, put it away for mishmeres. So the Mele, when it says L'Dei Sechem, is the Rebbe wrote across the south that this is not what he means. From that, some word didn't go into the Krotim, not because otherwise it says L'Mishmeres. It says L'Dei Sechem, so we know it means for some generations later. So the Mele, we do find it, but there it's special. But here, why would we say that the Torah would write something that's going to happen 1,000 years later? Even though it's not such a big kasha, but it makes a shverikait in the pshat. That's why Rashi brings the name of the Tana who said this, that's Rebbe. Because by Rebbe we find the same thing. It says that we know that Rebbe was Mesader and wrote the Mishnayos. The Torah, the din is that Vorim Shebal Peh, things which are said orally, you're not allowed to write. He darshan the posik, that the posik says in Tilim, that there's a time to do things for Hashem, so you could destroy the Torah. That means you could do things that not right in Torah, he darshan in order to save it, because he saw people were forgetting and they had to write it, otherwise the Torah would be forgotten. So here we have the same shaila. You could say that David HaMelech, when he said that posik, years before Rebbe had this in mind. How could you darshan like that? So we see that Rebbe doesn't mind darshaning a posik that's written now for the future. But mainly here, Rebbe could say the same thing. So the Rebbe says, Rashi brings the first pshat, because the second pshat has a kasha. So we read the first. The first one has a kasha, I bring the second. The second has a kasha, I bring the first. But still, to make it a little easier, he brings the Lashon Rebbe. Hagam, the Rebbe says, you could say, maybe this posik be'emes goes on something else. Be'emes, there's another drash we learn from this posik. We learn from this posik that a Nodi comes and tells you to go against Torah, you have to listen to him. Like Eliyahu Bar Carmel, which was Makir by Aboma. Gideon was Makir by Aboma. You're not allowed to be Makir by Aboma. But if a Nodi tells you, you're allowed to. And we learn it out from this posik. So maybe that's the main thing of the posik. So what the Rebbe did was an asmachta. He doesn't say the words, but it wasn't the real drash. And how do we say that? From here we see Rebbe holds that you could darshan a posik for later. So the Rebbe says an interesting thing, that between the two drashes, the Iker drash is the drash of Negei Teira Shabbat and Negei the Mishnayos. And it has a diuk in the posik. Interesting deal. Because the posik says, Eis lasses Hashem, Heiferu Teira Secha. Time to do for Hashem, to destroy your Torah. It doesn't say Heiferu Mitzvah Secha, to destroy mitzvahs. If it would go that you're allowed to go do an Aveira against a mitzvah, the Makriv and a Bomba, because the Nodi says, then it's not Torah, you're made for the mitzvah. A Isser you're doing. Torah Secha goes on Torah. That's why the Rebbe says the main drash is the drash of Rebbe. So from here we see that Rebbe holds that you could darshan a posik that's written earlier, years before, and it goes on years later. Now I want to mention an interesting thing, just a few small interesting things. In page 88, when the Rebbe says that the reason why the first pshat is not so good, so the first shayla that the Rebbe asked is, because why didn't, if the pshat is telling you now to be makabel, to do even mitzvahs which are in the category of gzeiras, why didn't he tell us that in the beginning, when he told us the regular mitzvah should include that? But the second thing is, because the Bnei Neach also have arayas a day b'shtarasa. Not the same, but also have arayas, which is also a gzeira. And that the Yidden accepted already before. B'shas Matan Torah, we already had these mitzvahs that the Goyim had in Neach. And then the Rebbe says, Val kulam omru naseh. The Yidden said naseh, we will do, and they said it on everything, including the Zayim mitzvah of Neach. But Mele, you can't say that this is the beginning of gzeiras. Well, there was some gzeiras before also. So I just want to mention, I don't know why, in the first Hagoah, the Rebbe wrote about Kulam, Omru, Nasev, and Nishma, and on everything they said Nasev and Nishma. And in the second Hagoah, the Rebbe crossed out the word Nishma and he left only the word Nasev. So I don't know why the Rebbe did this. Now, also, in order 34 here, which is here, in the Gaya Yirmi, I mentioned that already before, that here what he did, what the Rebbe crossed out the part of the Hora. Now, there was another thing that was asked from the Rebbe when this Sikha was given in, and that is that when we said in the Sikha that Kabbalah's in Der Chapshat, Kabbalah's Malchus, and Kabbalah's Mitzvahs is the same thing, not like Al Chassidus, Al Pidrush, etc., etc. So we asked the Rebbe that l'chure, it seems that way even from the Teiras Kehanim. Because the Teiras Kehanim, on this pasuk, it's also brought down in the Yalkut, the Remes, Tov Kuf Tzadik. It seems from there that he learns that this is a hemshech before. In other words, just like you were makabel the malchus, now makabel the mitzvahs is the same thing. Is mashmer that even the Teiras Kehanim, which is not in derech hapshat, also learns that kabbalas malchus and kabbalas mitzvahs are the same thing. If you look into the Loshen there, the way he goes, it means it's the same thing. So that's made the kasha, the Rebbe, this kasha, what the Rebbe asked, why Kabbalas Malchus is Kabbalas Mitzvahs? What are the two things there? That's not only in Derech HaPshat the kasha, is even in Teiras Kehanim it seems like that. But again, the Rebbe didn't accept it. What the Rebbe did, when this was written to the Rebbe asking him if this is this, so the Rebbe just crossed it out that it's not the pshat. And like a lot of times, he didn't always write why. So he said that this is not. So everyone could look up in the Teiras Kehanim on this on the posuk. You see it. Try to learn yourself to see what is the reason. Why is this not the pshat? Now I want to mention another small point. When it comes to here, the Rebbe says in Ha'orah 18, which I didn't mention before, and he says that. Why does Rashi not say that this is like in Parshas Vayera, that the pasuk is actually telling you that Ani Hashem Elokecha, I'm going to reward you, I'm going to give you punishment. So he said because this is written in the beginning, and over there it's all written by the end. But when it's written in the beginning, it doesn't mean that. And the Rebbe says that this is a raya from Rashi, Adik and Rashi. Rashi says in Parshas Vayera, we see this Loshen, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, is darshan in many places. Is mashma that not all places. It doesn't say in all places. It says in many places. Why? Because sometimes it's takenat. Like here it's Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and it's takenat just telling you stam that I am going to punish, I'm going to give reward. That's what Rashi says. Kama mekeimis. I'm just wondering myself, that obviously the Rebbe learns that the words the Kama Mekeimis was written out by Rashi, because it's possible Seichel that maybe it was written as a Rosh Tevis, Beis Chof Mem, and that could be or Kama Mekeimis, or it could be B'chol Mokim. And the Rebbe's Medayik, since it says Kama Mekeimis, because the Klal Zeh Eine B'chol Mekeimis. It's not all over; it's only Kama Mekeimis. Now. Just wondering why, because normally you could say that the printer wrote it Kama Mekeimis. Maybe it was written B'chol Mokim. But Vaisris, the Rebbe feels that this is kosher, that this was the word was B'chol Mokim, Kama Mekeimis, not B'chol Mokim. And therefore, it means that some places it's not like that. But this is in the Kuda Klolis, in the Sikha in Parsha Ach.